Getting experimental here. It's Mark Rushton of markrushton.com. It is Friday. Hold on here. What am I doing today? What a mess. I just thought I'd threw something together here real quick. What a mess. Not ready. Friday, December 11th, 2020. Are you on acid? No, but this light bulb is. As you can see, I'm wearing the from the Rod Rios collection. That's very important. And where have you gone, Erland Sommarskog? We'll talk about arcane subjects. Could I get a little further out than this? Well, no, I don't think so. Well, you know, it's been a weird year, so who cares? Let's have a little fun here with the party bulb and the Rod Rios. Yes. What, Erland Sommarskog? What are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about. Let's get on this here, okay? Okay, so back in the 1990s, there was a guy that used to review electronic British music and variations, Al Crawford. He had the best website, Al's Review Archive. It's out there on the Wayback Machine. And very good music reviewer. Eventually took his site offline, but the internet is forever. And he probably moved on to other things. But he had this thing that he used called the Erland Rating. And it's stuck with me over the years because particularly today with the way that music reviewers handle things, I can't really read any music review sites anymore. I do check them out, but everything devolves into the usual sort of insanity. And so I don't trust anything anybody says. And this started going haywire back in the, I guess probably in the 80s or 90s when, I used to read Rolling Stone and the reviews got smaller and smaller. It was the same thing with all the other kind of music magazines, the reviews, most magazines, not all. Something like The Wire, you would still have longer reviews and then maybe some shorter reviews or whatever. But eventually, like Entertainment Weekly, I remember my wife would get that and the review would be about like a sentence. It's like definitely not paying them by the word. And of course, if I remember correctly, all the record reviews, if it was like 1 to 5 stars, there's never anything below 3, which whenever you see that is highly suspect. And I'll get into that here in a little bit here, but Al Crawford back in the day, he used the Erland Rating system. And I'll read, because there's a post out here back on, what was this? Google brought it. Usenet. Back when Usenet was fun, before all the spam of 1995. So, hi, just curious, what exactly is the Erland Rating system? And so he does an absolutely fantastic job of explaining here who Erland was, Erland Sommarskog. And I don't know when it was invented. I didn't do that big of a deep dive. But where have you gone, Erland Sommarskog? I try to slip in those little just here and there. So the Erland Rating system is on a -5 to +5 scale. Bottom end is -5, top end is +5. The scale isn't linear though, nor is it exponential. It can be roughly summarized as +5, probably the all-time greatest album in the history of the universe, which today is everything. +4, truly an all-time classic, one to buy and cherish forever. And that's, like 10 albums every single week or more. +3, a very good album indeed and highly recommended. That's everything else today. +2, a good album, but with limited appeal, or an album that has a wider appeal, but is slightly less good. +1, a good album, pleasant to listen to, and certainly worth a listen. +0, competent, but unoutstanding. It's not a bad record as such, it just isn't particularly good either. -1, an album you should have reservations about. It's not really bad. In fact, you'll probably decide to keep it, but you probably won't play it that much. I have a lot of those. -2, the sort of album which, unless you are completely fanatical about the artist concerned, you probably shouldn't buy. -3, the sort of album which, if you are completely fanatical about the artist concerned, you probably shouldn't buy. -4, really bad album indeed. Connoisseurs of really bad albums should buy this. And -5, an album so bad you're unlikely to ever hear its like again. And then he goes on. But that's a good scale. That's a good scale. Q had sort of not exactly, they took elements of the Erland rating system, and they had like a 1 to 5 or 0 to 5 or 1 to 5 scale. And so they had elements. And I'll get to that here in a minute when we get to the Scott Walker Tilt album. I know. We're heading towards reading negative reviews of Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters, which is the greatest album of all time this year. So, yeah, I've been reading about that here and there and everywhere. And a lot of people have been, like that one website with the rare 10. They said the last time they gave out a 10 was for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. I remember I tried to listen to this when it came out. It's not for me. I would say it's for me it would be a -2. The sort of album, unless you're completely fanatical about the artist concerned, you probably shouldn't buy. I've tried to listen to his stuff over the years, and well, he has his audience. It's not me. I'm not going to slag it off or anything like that, but it's just I don't get it. Another one in that vein over the years would be Ease by Joanna Newsom. I tried back in the day, back in the back in the aughts. I remember with playing the harp with that little girl voice. 12 minutes long. I can't do this. I can't do this. There's an audience for this. Quit bringing up Kate Bush. But there's an audience for this. It's not me. But I'm not one of these people that's not into weird stuff. I am into weird stuff. This just doesn't have any appeal for me. For example, when it came out in 1995, this was the first CD I ever bought on the internet. I think I bought it from CD Now. It's Scott Walker's Tilt, and it was an import at the time. Excuse me here. And it was on the basis of a 4-star review, 4 stars out of 5 by Q Magazine. So I was a big Q Magazine fan then. And it's a very brave record indeed. Well, it's a brave listening experience. My wife hated it. Absolutely. What is this? Don't play this around me ever again. Okay. But then I was unfamiliar with him. just because, I mean, the last album that he had came out in 84, and I Climate of Hunter, which I eventually discovered, and I think it's fantastic. And then you discover all his stuff in the late 60s, which is brilliant. And where did my props go? Where did my props go? I just had here's my props. So I bought it. Made in Germany. You know, the inner sleeve, just a big blurry photo. Oh, just lost the old. Where'd that go? It's dark in here. I can't see anything. It was at 4 stars. It was probably 1 star too much for Q Magazine. I know they were probably trying to, but they had sort of a rating system. Yeah, again, it was kind of like the Erland, but they were like, you know, it's not like today where there's just tremendous grade inflation or just lying going on because somebody's paid to obviously promote something. But back then they would be like 3 stars. It's sort of like fine within its genre, but whatever. And 2 stars was like, you know, be careful. If you're not familiar with the artist, it may not be for you. It may be only for some people. But it was like a distilled version of the Erland scale. So on the basis of the written review and not knowing any of his past musical works, I was like, well, okay, I'll buy it. And I wanted to buy something on the internet because that was novel back then. And then, you know, whatever, 4 weeks later or whatever it was, this arrives in the mail. The post slipped it into the CD player of the Jetta. Scared my wife. And yeah, I'm not, you know, so there's that. And then there's also, you know, I've been buying this stuff all along. I bought the Drift. I own Bish Bosch. I've listened to the Flagpole Sitter, that 22-minute track. Yeah, 21 minutes. Zircon, a Flagpole Center. It's weird. Epizootics is actually got a good beat to it. It's got, you know, different sections and everything. It's weird. It's weird. I like some weird stuff every now and then. It's okay. This isn't going to be for everybody. I get it. There may be people out there who listen to Kanye West and Joanna Newsom, and they encounter something like this. I think what the world, scary stuff. So whenever I encounter, I tried to listen to this album back in when it came out. I think it was May or so. And I was like, well, okay, I'll give it some time. And, you know, I made it about 90, again, a second time, 90 seconds into Shamika. And I'm just, after about 90 seconds, I'm just like, when is this going to end? It's not for me. This is not, I tried news, you have the barking dogs and the beats and what? The barking dog thing that's been tried before. And so it just, I was like, this again? The great inflation? What is this? Why can't we have the Erland rating system everywhere, right? Instead, we have to have these long, drawn out reviews telling you why it's so great. It just turns me off of music journalism. I have to say this. I used to love reading record reviews and music magazines, and what in the world? Of course, they're all gone now, most of them. that's just websites, and they're all kind of have the same people write for them, and they all cover the same topics on each record, and it's strange. But I can't help but look every now and then. That's the way I am. So let's go and read some of these reviews here. Of course, let's start with the critical reviews, which are all way up there. You know, it's a bold experiment in pop craft, stretches her talents in adventurous new directions. Many exciting turns. The album exudes freedom, breaking constraints. Ramshackle beauty. Daring in a new way, scrambling and shattering the pop song structures that once grounded her. One hundred. An unyielding masterpiece. No music has ever sounded quite like it. You think I'm on acid? Not for me. Perfect. What's this here? The sort of album which, unless you're completely fanatical about the artist concerned, you probably shouldn't buy. -2. That's what I'd probably give this album. That's probably where I sit with what I have heard. I have not heard the whole thing. I don't have to hear the whole thing. I can hear enough of each. When you sit there for 90 seconds and when's it going to kick in? When's it going to get great? This is somebody who has sat through this many, many times. And I didn't even know the hundreds of times I've listened to this. If I can handle that, if I can handle Metal Machine music to a certain degree, why can't I handle this? On to the reviews. I have filtered them so you don't have to. But I love these. Some of these look kind of fake, and I like how they're in different languages. It's great. You go to an English site and you type in Spanish or some. Good for you. You really have an opinion. That's great. I've enjoyed the early releases, but this did nothing for me. No emotional connection, no groove to nod my head to. It just didn't grab my ears. Sounds like someone strangling a goat. I would not agree with that. I don't agree with that. There has got to be at least one song to grab you, to keep you interested till you catch up with the rest. Anyone who rates this higher than a 3 is a hipster. The uglier something is, the more they like it. Channels her inner Joni Mitchell. I've heard the unusual Joni Mitchell stuff. And I like a lot of Joni Mitchell's work. She was very uncompromising until she started messing around with the synthesizers and the drum machines. What in the world? There's a few good ones, good tracks in there, even in that era, but it's just like, oh. Anyway, but yeah, to compare this to Joni Mitchell, I don't know. It baffles me that this album currently has a near perfect score on Metacritic. Well, it shouldn't. There's a reason why. The music you have been told to like. And why were you told? Because there's such a small number of reviewers, and they all write for the same publications. They all have websites. You can see they all write for the same companies. That's how this works. I honestly thought it sounded like hot garbage. That's a little unfair. It was a chore to get through. Yes. For me, yes. It was a chore. I found myself being relieved when each song was finally over. I didn't even get that far. I was just like, get the gong out. Where's Chuck Barris when you need him? Fiona is dripping with talent, no doubt. I personally do not like this music. I'm obsessed with non-pop music. Florence and the Machine, the 1975 FKA Twigs. The Twigs has got some good music. But this left me unsatisfied and disappointed. This is probably my favorite negative review here. Tried for the third and final time to listen to this acclaimed masterpiece. Absolute tuneless drivel. That's a little unfair. So many hipsters have to prove they're cool by praising garbage like this. It's fine to like what you like. That's true. But no one will convince me that this is great music. Joni Mitchell did this style of music 1 million times better 50 years ago. Those praising this album are the same group who insist Radiohead were better after OK Computer, when we all know that's simply not true. That's a good line there. That's a good line. I agree. But OK Computer was a very, very, very high bar, particularly the first few songs on there. Oh my God, how do you get beyond that? It's like, it's like saying, well, the Stone Roses' Second Coming isn't as good as the first. Really? Really? Wow, that's a hard one to say. Jeez. Can't dance to it. Well, you probably could. But the rhythms in there, it just sounds like it's all sort of sampled in the computer. I mean, I'm fine with sampling, and I'm fine with a certain amount of whatever. But everything, like everything today is, the beats are all quantized. And that's something that I sometimes I do work with sort of strict rhythms, not necessarily quantized, because I'll layer them, make them a little out of phase or something. That's fine. And if you want everything super quantized and super strict and super correct, that's of its own thing. But there's so much of that going on today. It would be nice to have artists break free from that strict beat thing, just because it's got to have that groove, it's got to have that swing. Everything today just seems robotic and on drugs. The only time this music could ever be played is in front of an abstract improv. Yeah, well, here it is. The most overrated album of all time. Really? 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 Hold on here. Really? This was not overrated. It only got a 78 on Metacritic, which, what does that mean? I know Metacritic is what Metacritic is. The ultimate definition of musical mediocrity that can be sold because talentless journalists said it's good. I wouldn't call it musical mediocrity. It's in its own sphere. That's how I would put it. And but the talentless journalists, they are not talentless. They are being paid to tell you to like this album. It doesn't evoke emotion. It doesn't give you goosebumps. Mediocre. I don't know. Mediocre? I wouldn't call this mediocre. I think when you go and rip off another artist, that's a little mediocre. Like when you're like, well, this song sounds so much like the other song that, you know, that they get sued and they have to throw in the writer credit. I would call that mediocre. If you can't come up with an original groove on your own to have a hit song, and you have to try to steal somebody else's, you know, songwriting, you know, the melody or the feel or whatever, then that, I don't know. I consider that's more mediocre. Cannot get into this album. That's me. I can't get into this album. Doesn't mean it's bad. Her music is too cold and intellectual and quirky. What's wrong with quirky? I love it. There's two reviews here. It's boring, repetitive. It leaves you without wanting to listen to it again. And then there's another review. It is boring, repetitive. So that's where you think like some of this stuff is a little. I'll put 2 negative reviews out there because I hate it so much. This album sounds like it was made by a 10-year-old having a tantrum after being told they can't get Animal Crossing on the Switch. That's unfair. That's not right. See, even in the negative reviews, and I realize these are user reviews, that you're not going to get the level of sophistication that you probably should. But why can't we get that sort of truthful sophistication out of music review sites? I don't know. Music shouldn't be this much hard work to listen to. Well, some people think that about John Coltrane. Some melody here or there and a few less discordant notes wouldn't go as well. Just in the past year, I finally got around to listening to On the Corner by Miles Davis. And if you can we go there? Let's go there. And this album, when it came out, was just savaged. And of course, over the years, the opinion has changed about it, and I love it. It's great. Miles Davis is, you know, I guess for everybody who is into Kind of Blue or even up to Bitches Brew, something or In a Silent Way, something like On the Corner coming out is just scary. And so yeah, I got around it, but I like it. I listen to it. I've listened to it a number of times. I don't see how anybody. I suppose you have to take the negative reviews. Here's it. Yeah, On the Corner was panned by most critics and contemporaries in jazz. It became the most vilified and controversial album in the history of jazz in only a few weeks after its release. Stan Getz proclaimed that music is worthless. It means nothing. There's no form, no content, and it barely swings. It merely sounds as if the band had selected a chord and decided to worry the hell out of it for 3/4 of an hour. Well, that's actually kind of fun. I do that all the time. Eugene Chadbourne, writing for Coda, described it as pure arrogance. Where did these records? Oh, I think they all died, didn't they? Anyway, do I need to keep? No, I don't need to keep reading it here. Gets old after a while. Half an hour of this reading through. Yeah, it just, what can I say? It didn't do anything for me. And I tried. But, you know, if I only do that like every 5 or 10 years with an album, that's okay. It's okay. You never know. You never know what you might. You never know what you might come across and discover that you might actually like. You know, there are things that I've listened to in the past where I don't get them for whatever reason, and then or things I didn't know about. You know, because they have such higher profile records, and then, you know, something like On the Corner comes along. And of course, you read about, you know, you go through their discography now. You can do that with something like Wikipedia or Discogs or whatever. And you just start reading about, oh, they hated it. I got to go listen to it. Let's see what's so terrible about it, right? Oh, it's not so bad in context, right? I got an open mind. Anyway, that's it. I might come up with a video later today, maybe without the acid flashback here. I'm just playing around with stuff today. All right, see you later.